Hello, guys, welcome to this podcast, Everyday Talkies, which ironically does not come out daily. I am Anshul and I talk about random things to random people, majorly about life, perspectives, and thinking process. It's like an interview, or let's say more of a conversation with one or two guests about random topics that interest us. To be really honest, it's just a way to reduce my inhibitions in talking to people. So come join me and enjoy. Hello, guys. Welcome to the new episode of Everyday Talkies. Today, I have a new guest with me. His name is Sarthak Gulati. So, he is my college mate, friend, and yeah, I forced him to join me in this podcast as I have done with all my guests. So, hey, Sarthak, how are you doing?
Hi Anshul, I'm doing good. I just got off work a while ago, as you know, and I'm now just.
I'm not forcing you too much, right? This would,
No,
I'll
not
keep this relaxing for you. I'll not, delve into too high intensity topics. We'll keep this casual and probably
All
keep
right.
high intensity
Even
topics.
though high intensity topics, as you might remember from college, are my specialty.
Oh, guys, trust me. If Sarthak enjoys this episode, recording this episode, you're gonna see more of him, and he has lots of things to discuss and talk about. But yeah, we'll get to that in due course. And we'll first. So first, tell me. Like, this is the first question. Basically, I ask anybody who has ever who first comes to the podcast is
All right.
how has the past 8 months been? A change of pace from the regular lifestyle, and especially for you. For somebody who does not know Sarthak is that kind of guy who I don't think so can stick at home. Like, he's the person who wants to go out, he wants to meet new
Exactly.
people and interact with them. And for the past 7 or 8 months, things have not changed for the worst or whatever. So how has the lockdown been for you?
So beginning the lockdown was quite the beginning of the lockdown was quite problematic for me as well, because I was used to meeting our friends Aniruddha, Beben, and all of those people from college. I was used to meeting them every week or twice a week, thrice a week, and then going from there to just sitting at home was first of all quite hard. And beginning was quite difficult, but then as I progressed into work from home ka situation, and I started getting used to the fact that I have to work at home and communicate with my colleagues online, it kind of settled in. In the beginning, we had problems with let's say mostly communication problems, but then it slowly decreased, and now it became streamlined. One big event in the lockdown was that I lost my father, but then not because of coronavirus though, just let me add that, but yeah, I did. And so family used to be a big support for me. Family is still a big support for me. When I'm not going out, I usually just sit and enjoy a talk with my father or my sister. I help my sister with her career guidance and stuff, because if you remember right, I used to do that back in college. I used to teach classes on finishing schools, as in resume writing, job interview skills, selecting the right job for you, or applying to foreign universities and all of that. So I do that with my sister as well, and my cousin. So that's how I spent my time. My relaxing time used to be, let's say, have a drink with my sister or have a drink with my aunt, that kind of thing. But then I did not really miss my life back then because of my family. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, since you brought that up, things have been really topsy-turvy for you in the lockdown, and
Right.
you can tell me if this is if this is something which you don't want to discuss, but how has things changed in family? Because obviously tragedies happened, and you're dealing with it, and you have I know you are one of the strongest person I know, and you've been dealing with it quite tremendously. How has your life changed?
Right. So the fact that I work in the world of data analytics has been a really good help, because data analysts usually earn very lucrative salaries.
Yeah.
So losing the main breadwinner of my family wasn't that hard. But then a lot of psychological issues come up with it, because
Correct.
I lost my father right in front of me, and me and my sister were the people who carried him to the hospital and stuff. That kind of left some post-traumatic stress, and it leads to how you see flashbacks and stuff happen in TV series. That kind of happens in real life. That's a very accurate representation of how post-traumatic stress manifests. And so it was that for a while. Now we're kind of recovering. in the recovery phase. Like now we are settling down properly in terms of how we perform at jobs or college, and family dynamic has changed quite a lot. Earlier, when my dad used to be there, it used to have there used to be a very different dynamic between me and my sister. Now that dynamic is changing towards, instead of hand holding, it's changing to guidance, a more mature kind of a setting. Yes. So I mean, whenever you lose a person, I think the most problematic, the most painful part is the absence of of their presence, kind of the absence of their presence. You turn your head and you just see them sitting there for a second, and then suddenly they're not there. That kind of thing does happen. So if I'm talking about the psychological process that happens in when you lose someone, it's kind of like losing a great opportunity in life. So let me ask you, Anshul, have you ever lost something really great that you were aiming for? If you could share your experience here, then I would move forward with what I was going to say.
Oh damn, it's a tough spot you've put me in directly.
Let's say if you've let's say if you've missed a deadline which you really wanted to get to, or you've set for a placement which didn't really happen, stuff like that.
Yeah, I could say I think the biggest one probably in my life, if I remember the top of my head, would be that I aimed for a different career path, like a very, very different from what I'm pursuing. And it's not like I don't like this one, I'm enjoying this one as well. But that was one of your, it's like your dream that one day you want to do that in one way or the other. And I'm sure in future, if opportunities will arise and you'll have to grab on to the right ones, you can fulfill it in one way or the other. But yeah, missing that mark, I think could be one thing that I could give as an example here.
Okay, so I mean, in both of these situations, have you noticed how in the beginning, like when you lose something in the beginning, let's say about your career choice, when you got into a career path which was very different from what you had imagined yourself, in the beginning that change is all you think about.
Yeah.
Then slowly this fades away. You think about it, let's say after after a few hours, or you think about it once a day after that, you think about it once every week after that, and slowly this decreases, right? So that process happens. But before that process starts, you have your 5 stages of grieving, and all those 5 stages of grieving kind of you go through very fast when you lose something which is easily replaceable, such as a career path. So these stages kind of happen quite fast. You're first in denial. You kind of start thinking about how it has not happened. What has happened has not happened. When the coroner at the hospital came and told me that your dad is no more. At first I was like, I said, "Kya bakwas kar rahe ho?"
Yeah.
And all of that. Right. So that is the denial phase. And then slowly, you will notice this with all kinds of losses. There are this is a set methodology that humans use to move on from losses, and then slowly acceptance comes. So after this acceptance comes, then your the amount of times you think about it in a unit of time kind of decreases slowly. So I mean, there are first you go through the 5 stages of grief every time you lose something. So yeah, so I mean, it's like losing your career path, but at an astronomical scale, according to your
I'm
human
sure you're
brain.
simplifying it a lot, but I basically wanted to bring this up. I know it's a conversation between us, but I wanted to bring it up for everybody here because these instances, be it anything, and affects our mental health in a variety of ways. I have never done a particular episode on mental health. I don't know how much we ourselves are capable enough to speak on that, so I'll probably contact an expert and bring them here and talk about that. But I just want to just bring the topic out and just close it off here and here, is that it's a very important aspect of life. Whenever there's a cut in a finger, you treat it immediately, but mental health is something which goes unnoticed. There are some orthodox sentiments amongst everybody, so, and that needs to be catered very, I would say, carefully. It has to be very handled carefully. It is something that can be treated. It is something which can be managed, and people should be more aware about it. And I'll not speak too much because obviously I am not much aware about this, but I'm sure gonna bring some experts who are licensed in this field or are studying in this field who can talk about this. But as Sarthak mentioned, that there are different aspects to it, and all these things should not be underestimated. That is what I wanted to say.
Right. So I mean, just chiming in something else here. Like, I mean, human brain has certain set patterns which are associated with emotions, and these set patterns, like, are at whatever scale something is happening, if it generates those emotions, you will fall into those patterns, right? So let's say a loss leads you to the five stages of grief. And let's say romantic relationships, a child actually learns how to act in romantic relationships by the way they act with their parents. For girls, it's the relationship that they carry with their dads, and for guys, it's the relationship that they carry with their moms. In the beginning is again a very complicated topic to discuss, but right, we leave that to the experts. Yeah, but generally speaking, it, like, human brains have set patterns which they could get into whenever they are in a specific kind of situation which arouses a specific emotion.
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, we'll not delve too much into it, because always this podcast will go all about mental health, because there's so much to talk about,
Right.
and there's so much to
Definitely.
educate everyone who's listening about this. But yeah, we'll leave that to another day. But okay, let's move on to a more lighter note, more happier note. So, have you learned, or have you pursued a new hobby this lockdown?
So I started watching a lot of videos on stuff about the space. I actually got into astronomy. Sorry, I got into astronomy this year.
This episode is going to get so much more interesting now. Yeah, go ahead.
This is so I all my life I've always thought about getting into sciences, but as you know, I went from a commerce path to then computer science and now mathematics, but never really explored sciences, like classical sciences that well. So this lockdown, I have started exploring quantum mechanics and stuff about astronomy. The reason why I went into it is because my cousin is the president of the astronomy club at his college, and he just kind of started telling me one or two really interesting facts about space, and then I just started watching videos on YouTube, one after the other, binge watching them. So I mean, like one interesting fact that I learned just, let's say, 3 months ago almost, would be that our solar system itself lives in a sort of bubble. It's called the Oort cloud.
Yeah.
And it's basically just a bubble of dust around our solar system. And I mean, how cool is that there is stuff that's protecting us from the radiation that's entering that is trying to enter the solar system from the rest of the space. It kind of speaks about, I mean, how entropy creates really perfect mechanisms for life, or for systems, basically like processes that happen in the solar system. They're they're just created because of how it has turned out. I mean, the universe seems random, but it is deterministic, but it is random at the same time.
Yeah,
so
that's a huge field, where
right,
the universe seems so random, but even if you change one of the values even to the millionth of a degree or something,
right,
then life does not exist. Point that. So yeah, it's very interesting, and I'm super glad that you're into this now, because this is like my all true love, space, astronomy, and all of that, and I've always been into that. But I'm really upset with myself that I could not get you into this. Probably I didn't know that you had those budding curiosity about this. But yeah, I'm glad that your brother could incite it. Even I didn't know that Dhaval, our classmate, even he was into astronomy, he was into astrophotography and all of that. And I got to know, after I saw his Instagram photos after we graduated, and damn,
right.
People having same interests and didn't really talk too much about it. But yeah, I get that. But yeah, that's a really cool thing that you developed. And I have these occasional group, I would say, podcast episodes, which are more celebratory in nature, where we did one which was on the 51st anniversary on man's first landing on moon, where we got some of my friends and everyone who was basically interested in space and astronomy, and to just chime in, talk about their favorite missions, talk about anything that they love about space. And we had like 7 or 8 guests. Everyone was interacting. It was a lot of fun. So I plan on doing those occasionally, because come on, this is like, I want to build a community with people having similar interests. So that would be fun. I would next time contact you so we could talk about that more.
Another great thing here is how we perceive nature, and in terms of mathematics. So I mean, have you heard about let's start with a very common example, the Fibonacci series, right? I mean, it is found everywhere in nature, and somehow organic stuff kind of grows that way. You can the kind of angles that you find that flowers grow in, or how you see that the human face is structured. It's basically a lot of Fibonacci series. The shape is kind of it grows in the form that a Fibonacci spiral grows, and that kind of is interesting as well. And then the concept of fractals, how the golden ratio is found in nature is also damn interesting here. Like, how trees, the branches of trees bifurcate itself is a really good example of the golden ratio being, in action. And we don't know where these constants come from, we don't know where the golden ratio comes from, or where the value for pi comes from, but it just exists in nature somehow. And that kind of makes me feel how the universe is just mathematically accurate, and that kind of enhances the possibility for me. For me, it kind of enhances the possibility of the simulation theory being correct, as in how light cannot reach from one corner of our solar system to another in a matter of a fraction of a very small fraction of a second cannot reach from one end of my solar system to another. But at the same time, if two particles at two ends of our solar system are quantum entangled, they can interchange information instantaneously.
Yep.
And that is damn interesting for me to know.
Oh, this is so exciting. I've always wanted somebody who was into this stuff, and with such deep level. And it's refreshing to know that you're talking about quantum entanglement and how information spreads through vast amount of space in just fraction of seconds, crossing the boundations of speed, and then you determine how exactly that is possible. Yeah, these are really fascinating things. You know what? We'll talk about this more after the episode, and I'll recommend you some books, and I'll get some recommendations from you as well.
So I am not the correct person to talk about this. If you want a proper deep explanation about quantum mechanics, then your previous speaker Aniruddha is your guy. He is the person who explained quantum mechanics to me in the beginning, and I am a person who doesn't have a physics background. I'm a person who does not understand physics, but like the way he explained quantum entanglement, quantum superposition, and the basics of quantum mechanics to me was just mind-blowing. I mean, after that, I could probably talk about it for hours.
Yeah, and guys, for anybody who does not remember who Aniruddha was, he was who came in our, I think, 8th or 9th episode, if I remember the numbers correctly. We were talking about, computer building and laptop buildings and all of that. So there was a 2-parter episode there. So you guys can check that out. And what, we need to do an episode with you and Aniruddha together, because that would be a blast, because that is a gold mine. Content which if anybody stumbles on, will never ever regret listening to it.
Then we can definitely do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's awesome that you are getting into this. But okay, to close this off, and we can delve into other things a bit later. But how was the career going for you? Because again, this is a topic which is, I think, quite prevalent in all my episodes, I would say, with different people. Right. Because given that our age, we are in that point where everyone is figuring out different things with their life, with their career. Everyone, somebody has their own startup. Somebody had started a startup, stopped it, now going into jobs. Somebody, did computer science and now is studying politics, and things have changed drastically. Somebody is contemplating, going abroad. Somebody is contemplating doing the traditional route, the MBA route, or all of these things. So let's go back, let's say, I would say 10-15 years in past, when the young Sarthak Gulati was dreaming of a career path, and how things changed from that. So let's talk about that.
So the earliest example of this I can remember is when I was about 10 years old. Back then, I used to say that I wanted to become a doctor, if you can believe that.
Oh, wow.
It has been a roller coaster ride since then. I first wanted to be a doctor, then I got interested in accountancy. So I was like, I'll go for a chartered accountant. And back when I graduated from school, I thought I would go become a computer science engineer, a software engineer, so to say, a classic software engineer, basically. That, since then, again, it's been a roller coaster ride. It's not only the early part of my life which has been a roller coaster ride. Just going back 2 more years, speaking of 10th grade, 10th, 11th and 12th, I did not know what I was doing in mathematics. Mathematics used to be my weakest point. I frequently used to fail at the subject. I never used to understand what the application of a mathematics was. When someone used to, even statistics, like just basic statistics. If someone used to say, I couldn't tell the difference between a mode and a median back when I was back when I was in 10th grade.
Sarthak, just to interrupt you, guys, what Sarthak is saying right now is that he did not understand statistics, and the job that he does right now is statistics. Nothing else. Just
right, exactly.
Context. But yes, Sarthak, go continue.
Yeah, I did not understand statistics back then. So the main reason why students are not really able to choose a career path early on in their life is mostly because of the kind of teachers they get at school. Teachers usually play a huge role in getting a student interested in a subject. I had really great teachers for commerce. That's why accountancy, business studies, and economics used to be my strong points. Coming to mathematics, I never really had teachers who wanted to explain to me why mathematics was applicable, and that is why I kind of never really became interested in mathematics. For science, I also had really great teachers. So that is exactly why I thought, okay, cool, I want to study biology, I want to become a doctor. So there was no teacher, I did not get a teacher who was able to build interest for me in mathematics back in school. And then I came to college. I came to college thinking that I would join, talking about university entrances, I applied for both BBA and BCA.
Oh, okay.
BBA is Bachelor of Business Administration, where BCA is Bachelor of Computer Applications. And I wrote both their exams at several universities. I got into both BCA and BBA. And then I thought, all right, if I'm going into management, I would be like a cliche. All of my friends are doing management is what I thought. This is my exact thing. So I'm not saying that I was smart about my degree choice, but that's how an 18-year-old thinks.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to be a cliche, that kind of thing. And that's why I thought, all right, I'll do something which none of my peers are doing. And I got into computer science. So computer science and I have a history that goes really long back. I started coding in HTML when I was about 9 years old. That's it, 9 or 10 years old. I started coding in HTML, and from there I moved into like CSS, a bit of JavaScript. I used to dabble into a lot of programming languages, a lot of different programming languages. I got into learning how data is stored as JSON, XML files and stuff. I got to learn that as well. Then I finally learned SQL. SQL used to be my best. I used to be really happy writing SQL queries. I used to wonder at how computers store data and stuff. So that kind of it really I always used to wonder about how a computer works and stuff. And so that's why I always wanted so when I wrote code, right, I used to feel like I'm performing magic. It used to feel like a fantastical thing, being able to get a computer to do something for you, right? Even if it was a hello world program. It used to feel really good, cool, I'm telling it to do something and it's doing something.
It's like a creation coming to life.
Right. It used to, it's a creation coming to life. Exactly. And then I went on to study C, C++, all of those classical programming languages. I graduated from school, and then I went on to study computer science at college as well, which is where I actually understood how much I love computer science, because earlier it used to be just a hobby. Now it had become a career path for me. For the first 2 years of college, I used to delve into how I'd be going forward to become a computer science engineer or a software engineer or something like a database administrator. All of those classic jobs which used to used to be there in the computer science industry 20 years ago. I remember back in 2000s that whenever I used to hear someone doing a computer science job, either they were a computer operator, or they used to be a technical assistant, or they used to be a software engineer, and being a software engineer used to be held in really high regard back then. But then the good times came, which is now the computer science industry has expanded so much that there's a software engineer is just the beginning or the tip of the iceberg of how many career choices you can have in this field. So in the second year of computer BCA, I started reading up on how mathematics could be applied, and it was just because I got really great teachers for mathematics back in college. I'm sure you remember them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ma'am, they I actually still have a really high regard for them, because they actually got me interested in math.
And Sarthak, just to add to this, the maths that we studied in college was very different from what we did, in our school years. It was more application based. You could see how it was applied in computer world or even in real life world. You could have direct correlation. You could see how things belong there, and that is how the interest developed innately. And then obviously we had great teachers who could inculcate that into us. But I think that is a very big difference and very big disconnect that we have in schools, where there's so much importance given to these set theories that they fail to
to make us understand how it can be implemented in real world. Fail to give us examples and how to compare it with real life examples. That way we relate to it on a more personal level and then understand it better.
Exactly. So I mean, back in 11th grade when I when I was taught differentiation for the first time, if someone had told me this is how you measure rate of change, or this is the change in the rate of change back then, just this one sentence, I would have understood differentiation in a completely different way than how I understood it back then. Even though that was not a part of the curriculum back then, I agree, but that could have actually helped me get interested in the subject quite earlier. I mean, you're true that our subject was more application based, and that is why I developed interest for it. But I'm saying that if every teacher teaches mathematics in the form of application,
correct,
then students' interest towards mathematics and the fact that students say mathematics is my most hated subject would disappear.
Correct.
And all the stigma towards mathematics would disappear as well if mathematics was taught in a different way. Is my point. So you remember back in school we also had these math labs. I mean, not meth labs, like math labs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in mathematics, if you study that math lab workbook properly, that is the practical application of math. And how the math lab workbook was taught in my school was, this is the experiment you have to do. Now you first cut this is it used to be very practice based, as in cut a square from a sheet of paper like this, then paste it there, cut another sheet of triangle which is like that and paste it there in a different way and all of that. But nobody taught me why we are doing it, why we are measuring this like that. Why are we cutting out these circles and squares, and why is a plus b whole square equals a square plus b square plus 2ab was not really taught to me in that practical way. They never taught it like that. If they had taught it like that in class, or even if they had explained that workbook, that math lab workbook properly, then I would have a very different interest at mathematics, is what I mean to say. And not only I'm talking about a lot of other people, anybody.
Yeah, makes sense, makes absolute sense, man. But yeah, this has been, I think, one constant struggle which I think everyone faces and everybody recommends. I don't know when it can be really applied into our Indian education system, or I don't know how prevalent it is, but you know what, I'll not hold you for too long because I think it's already been half an hour or so. But guys, there are so many things, it hurts me to end this episode so early because I have other commitments and I have to run. But I'll just give you a sneak peek that if Sarthak wants, he can come back and discuss on these. Sarthak has, in his 3 years of college, he has also left a dual life, I would say, where he was awesome at studies, he was awesome at academics, but at the same time he was part of this group. You could imagine it as a small startup inside the college itself, and he used to teach other people, juniors, seniors. He used to run classes on variety of things. He mentioned some of it in our today's conversation, but I want to get a deeper dive on how he developed interest towards his oratory skills and those challenges, those dynamics that plays between when you are a teacher, when you're a student, and all of that. So if you guys are interested in this thing about it, and if Sarthak, you are interested in talking about it, I'd love to have you for another episode to discuss that.
Sure. I think a lot of students in our community do not really have adequate means to learn these things. A lot of students in our community still do not know why a resume is required and what the job of a resume is and stuff like that. So I mean, I can speak as long as you want about professional skills, research skills, and public speaking skills, of course, as you mentioned. So I mean, definitely that's a talk for another day.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much, Sarthak, for joining me and having this lovely conversation. There's so many more things. I know we decided on different things. We thought we'd delve into more on personal identities and mental health a bit more, and applications of math we touched a bit. We could go on a more detailed discussion on that. But yeah, let's store it for another day. The podcast is not getting over. This is just one episode, guys. Sarthak is gonna come again. Don't worry.
Surely. Thank you very much, Anshul. It was a nice conversation.
And thank you guys for listening. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you to all the listeners. I'll catch up with you again soon with someone new and lots of interesting discussions. So, bye.